Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. I can't
Well,
complain.
it's been a crazy day. I mean, if you're looking at the North Carolina General Assembly, it's been an absolute crazy day.
Yeah, it has been. And it's been, brought to us by Democrats, actually.
I think I read there were 200 and something bills, over 200 bills submitted today because it's the last day for submission, midnight tonight.
Mm-hmm. Right. Our nerves are shot over here, by the way. Absolutely.
I just couldn't get through them all because some of these are so crazy.
Well, let's go over the ridiculousness brought to us by the Democrats. So this is a gender affirming care rights. It's so actually preposterous. It's hard for me to get it out of my mouth. What it does is it makes sex changes without parental consent legal. Healthcare workers, Margot, under this bill, will have to complete an LGBTQIA LMNOP training, including on systems of oppression. I bet they don't include Jews in that sucker.
I think, this is the opposite of the bill I think I read because, this is nuts.
Right. It's not. It's the opposite.
There's one on the other side in the Senate that is, that's Vicky Sawyer and Brad Overcash that did the opposite of that bill, which says your gender is affirmed at birth and it has to be,
right.
Crazy.
I mean, so really what it is in this bill, it will codify gender being a social construct rather than biology.
Well, what the truth of the matter is, we're really seeing where they are truly going to fight each other on opposite sides because you're seeing different sides of all these bills, and it's nuts. I mean, we've already hashed this out, and here we are back at it again.
Right. They want to roll this back. So this is Wake County Representative Allison Dahl, and she is an LGBTQ acolyte. I mean, she eats, sleeps, and breathes it. And so it is militant lesbians trying to push down their agenda on the rest of us. That's what it is. And I'm sick of it. And here we go. Another one.
Yeah, here, this one's even worse.
Okay. So repealing the Parental Bill of Rights. This is sick and disgusting. This is actually a pro-grooming bill. So there's no legal protections at all for parent involvement in K through 12 and their health decisions. We've been spending the last 2 weeks talking about renegade doctors who are talking, pro-terror stuff, wanting to kill Christians, Jews, whatever, advocating, and having them have full, unfettered access to children.
And here we are with a bill that would let them do that.
She's a stupid groomer. Anyway, from Wake County, by the way, my county, allows schools to withhold information from parents about, if Billy wants to be called Sally. Completely ridiculous, and removes. But you know what? This is so ridiculous, Margot, that actually it shows how common sense the bills that we've already passed in North Carolina actually are.
And it also, this is really what I feel like is there's a lot of time being wasted in the General Assembly because we had another bill that we talked about last week about the same issue when it comes to parents being able to find the control over their kids medically.
That's not a bill. That's already codified in
right.
law.
But I mean, we talked about it already is what I'm trying to get at.
And how, and how preposterous it is. And actually a Republican was on the other side of that. Again, Allison Dahl. So let's go over the next one. This came out last week. Sound basic education for every child.
What?
This
Why are they putting in race-based quota things when the president has already said you get no money if you do that?
Well, I mean, that begs the question. I mean, I think they're just obsolete at this time. But I mean, this is against the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It's against Title VI, but it mandates racial hiring quotas and race-based hiring for schools.
Well, I feel like North Carolina is between turning into California or staying a southern state. It just really is. We're at that crossroads right now where Democrats who are on the line are either going to call and say, you know, this is stupid, or they're going to allow us to just sink into California.
Well, they tell me it is. I'm in there all the time, and they tell me.
Really?
They pull me inside, and yeah, they tell me that they're not for it. And I'm like, I don't give a damn. I hope you never open your mouth and tell anyone. I want to keep winning races. But this is Wake County. I mean, this is the way that it is. I mean, these bills are put up. I doubt they'll pass, but let's go on. This is going to require, get this, DEI trainings for teachers that puts anti-Christian, anti-male. You can imagine these people hate men, anti-family, and pro-queer studies in every classroom.
They put anti-male in there. Okay, so how's that sound basic education if it's anti-male? And I always thought we were told that there's not enough male teachers.
Well, how are you going to get more Democrats if you wipe out males?
Well, they know now that I mean, everybody knows it's females in college that are the problem on the Democratic side. We all know it, and they're proving it.
Create state DEI office, a Politburo, basically to override the adherence on sex policies, etc. And get this, it centralizes all the power for the schools in Raleigh. In Raleigh, where probably the least amount of brain power in the state happens to be concentrated.
A lot of money, not so many brain cells.
For the record, I don't live in Raleigh. I live on the outskirts of Raleigh. So
you're really one of those suburban moms.
For all you guys. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I don't want this stuff. I mean, I'm in the county, but by the way, all of this is, and I want to talk about one more bill actually that I did not put up here. Okay. It is a bill. It's called like periods for people. 775 for people. $775,000 for us to give free tampons to people.
And we're in prisons and where are we putting these?
Schools and prisons, but really anywhere. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? But $775,000 when tonight, you guys, Wake County is meeting about a budget shortfall in the schools because of growth. We have so many students coming in that they're having to get rid of all the substitute teachers. So $775,000 to my calculation is about 20 full-time teachers. I mean, it's not the 220 needed, but tampons for men. Where would a man put a tampon?
I don't know, between his toes. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't even really want to think about that.
Biology. And if it can't be answered without turning red or calling me some sort of name or whatever, then we probably shouldn't be paying $775,000 for it.
Well, I mean, that's a Julie von Hoslin bill or whatever her name is, isn't it?
Ah, yeah. Look who's the lead sponsor.
I mean, I really think she's absolutely nuts.
I mean, yes. Oh, Catherine from Arizona. Let me tell you about Catherine. I love you, Catherine. Catherine is on the state education team down there with Tom Horn, who's a state superintendent in Arizona, who's getting the job done. You guys are eradicating it. And Catherine, you guys show us what leadership is when you have a real conservative at the top of education down there. Tom Horn is a superintendent in Arizona. We're a lot of like, North Carolina. And
they're trying to turn Arizona, California.
That's right. But he's not allowing it to happen. And Catherine's not allowing it to happen. She's deputy superintendent, not going to allow it to happen. But this shows you. And we have the exact opposite of that. And yes.
Well, go back to that screen, Sloan, because I want to talk a little bit about how the radicals are, who the radical sponsors are. So you got Julie, and then you got that Prather who's out of Asheville.
Yeah.
And then
It's
you
the
got
Motley Crew. And remember these names actually, because they're going to be coming up in the next thing. Okay. Right to reproductive freedom. What it is right to late term abortion. Taxpayers will now fund abortion. Prohibits any government modification on abortion. So let's say you got a 2-month-old that's driving you nuts.
Did you see what that last one was, though?
Hell yeah, I
It
saw it. I
allows
put the slides together.
nurses
I'm
to give
mad.
birth
Nurse practitioners, certified nurse midwives.
and physician's assistants. Wow.
I mean, how about now at Walgreens instead of Minute Clinic, it's Minute Abortion.
Well, at the same time, we have these nut jobs doing this. Trump is saying, I'm going to defund Planned Parenthood. Like he said it outright today. So, I mean, then we'll have a law. We're not going to have that in law, but it's going to go through and be in complete conflict with what the president's executive orders are.
That's the entire point, right?
Absolutely. 100%.
Obstruction, obstruction, obstruction. And they don't give a damn who it hurts. That's the problem. Mothers, actually fathers, you know, a lot of men are hurt from abortion policies. I would have to think, especially late term. So they want after 24 months.
24. I was going to say.
When you're pregnant, it does feel like 24 months of being pregnant.
Here's the weirdest thing. I don't know if you know this. There's only 8 states in the U.S. and 1 territory, D.C., that allow full-term abortions. In the whole globe, there's only 9 countries, and the United States is one of them because we have 8 states. What's interesting about that is, I bet you'd never guess that Alaska is one of them. No. And now they want us to be.
Oh, they very much do. I mean, they very much want that. I think that's their esprit de corps. They're the party of death. All roads lead to death.
Death and destruction.
Death and destruction. We'll get to the destruction part. But I mean, and I really mean that, because if it's, you know, abortion full term and you're having curricula that makes males the great bastards. Oh, by the way, white males are terrible people. And literally in Title I schools all across North Carolina, they're trying to trans young Black males. They're trying to feminize the Black males. So what you're trying to do is kill them off. I mean, metaphorically speaking, but right? I mean.
Well, here's the thing though. How would a mother who is trying to raise a young man think that's okay? I don't care what side of the fence you're on. A mother would want to protect her son from any evil. And that includes indoctrinated evil.
It includes progressive white women, which are the enemy of this country.
I think this is going to backfire on them.
I did too. Oh, well, would you looky here? Julie, this is my representative, you guys. I have to tell you.
What's interesting to me is she's not from North Carolina originally. Allison Dahl's not from North Carolina originally.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. She's born and raised here.
Not Julie.
No,
Julie's
but
not.
Allison. That's right. But Allison is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I didn't think she was.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, born and raised here is going to be very rare in Wake County. I think, you know, because that's where all the New Yorkers, I mean, by and large, right, they come in. Now, again, I would just want to point out tonight, Wake County schools, they say, I think they're mismanaging money, of course, but they say they're struggling just to keep the lights on. They're just struggling to keep the lights on.
And they just cut the DEI guy or person.
Yeah. And here's another one. Remember the Crown Act. And that is nuts, because that means if I wear my hair braided, I get the same treatment and the same rights as Black women in the workplace. Now, I don't know how Black women feel about this, but I think it's cultural appropriation, right? Just because I wear braids.
What next? If everybody wore a mohawk? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well, a mohawk, I don't think is unique.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, I know. You know what? And here I am trying to be serious, but you cannot be serious with these guys. Now, here's one thing that pissed me off. What you're looking at is a specialty 9/11 flag, okay? And it's recognized in North Carolina. It's being used, and it's primarily used in our schools to raise awareness with children about what 9/11, what happened that day. I mean, it was terrible. So this is a bill, and actually, it's not a bill. I think it's like a recognition, right? This is the recognition that was voted on today. 14 Democrats actually voted no. So this is what they vote no to.
Zero cost, and they still don't want it.
Zero cost authorizes, first of all, it designates the freedom flag as an official 9/11 remembrance flag. It's been done for years anyway, mostly in schools. Zero cost to individuals. It's going to be donated. By the way, this is in Wake County. These are the election results. Allison Dahl. I mean, this district in Wake County is gone. Look at that.
Yours, it looks like. Well, no, yours is closer. You actually have room. Honestly.
Well, I have to tell you guys, I'm going to look right in the camera and say this really quickly. In my neighborhood, okay, the Republican candidate did not even outreach to me. I'm an influencer. She never even asked me for an interview or to mention her at all. Nothing. And yet the independents in my neighborhood, 4 visits from Julie Von Hafen's team, 4 personal visits.
Wow.
Lake County GOP has a new leader. What the hell was going on with the last leader? They were asleep at the wheel. It was abysmal. And that's why we got our ass kicked. Can't happen.
Well, I really believe Sandy's going to turn that around at the GOP. And I think, now we have you guys are in a good position because there's some universities around you that if we said, hey, we need to walk and knock doors, they could probably get some volunteers.
We have a lot of cute little young Republicans now, a ton of them.
See,
and we're gonna put them to work. So we talked about. I mean, look, the other ones are absurd. This is horrifying. The Democrats want to protect. They're saying protect. Okay, but we're saying they're not protecting children, the sick, or the elderly. They want to protect gang members. So this bill that they proffered, okay, would shield violent criminal gang members in schools, hospitals, and churches. And we're going to talk to Sam Page in about 1 minute on this issue. And encourages gangs, drug traffickers, human smugglers, and terrorists to recruit and operate in schools, hospitals, and churches.
Which they're already doing.
Hell yeah, they're already doing. And it punishes local LEOs who follow state and federal law. Now, I don't think it's a dumb bill category. Let me tell you something.
There is a dumb bill category.
Democrats are not fit to lead.
No. And they're really dragging the state down. And honestly, I'm glad we're doing the show because I'm hoping that it reaches past people that are normal listeners, that are conservatives, for me at least, and for you. But I want this to get past people that really get into politics just to see what these nut jobs are doing that we've elected. That we've clearly said in the election, we want conservative leadership in the White House. And here we are in North Carolina with these nut jobs in the assembly, in the General Assembly, rolling back everything we voted for.
Why is that? Weak GOPs in county by county.
Correct.
Okay. Well, we're going to get beyond that. But look, we have Sam Page coming on, and I know that you want to introduce him and ask him some questions about his whole background. We're very excited to have him on. Welcome, Sheriff Page.
Howdy.
How are you?
Doing good. It's been a long day. We had a lot of fires this weekend in the western part of the county, and so we were supporting their effort, the firefighters, and everything got knocked down, and everybody was safe, and no one injured. So that was good.
That's always a good sign when nobody gets injured. So I would like to just introduce you a little bit. Okay. I did not realize that you went to Reedsville High School till we spoke the other night, and we played them at Ragsdale. So that was kind of cool. And I also knew when I met you at the Marsha Blackburn event in Hendersonville that you were in the Air Force, but I did not know what you did. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, of course, you mentioned that I was a Reedsville Ram, and we've done quite well in football, and actually we got our second state championship in basketball just recently.
Oh, wow.
But I graduated in 1975, and I wanted to go into law enforcement, but I was too young, and of course, I ran into one of the local recruiters, and I asked, what the opportunities were. And he said, we can get you in law enforcement. You can build that background here leading up to you getting out. So I started off serving 4 years in the Air Force as a security police canine handler. and I gave them an extra year. And then when I got out, I was able to work at the Fort Lauderdale Police Department for a short while. And I realized real quick that I'm a small town guy, and the big city just wasn't me. So I put Fort Lauderdale in my rearview mirror, and I headed back to Rockingham County, North Carolina, and I've been here for well over 43 years.
Well, Sam, tell us what's going on with what you're doing right now. I think you're in the middle of something.
Well, I will be finishing up my term as sheriff, my seventh term, and I'll have 28 years of service for the citizens of Rockingham County next year, and I plan on finishing out my term as sheriff. But I'm not ready to kind of kick back and just kind of relax. I'm a kind of guy that likes to get the work done and keep doing a little bit of work. And I saw where there's still problems in North Carolina. Last year I ran for lieutenant governor. I made a run all over the state. I told somebody, I said, I found every Cracker Barrel from Wilmington to Waynesville. But besides that, I met a lot of nice people. I learned a lot, and I realized we've got a beautiful state and it's worth protecting. And I got a lot of different perspectives, but traveling around. And then I started, focusing on, what's going on, in Raleigh and also what's going on back home. Because as you know, back into 23, 24, we had a pretty contentious time. Senator Berger wanted to bring casinos to 4 locations in North Carolina: Rockingham, Anson County, Nash County, and then, of course, then Lumberton. And he also had talked to me in July of that year that of 23 wanted to also consider the video lottery terminals. Now, as you know, sheriffs across North Carolina have fought all types of video gaming for 22 years.
I know.
And so when I heard that, I kind of listened. I didn't give it, because I like to hear all the details. But at the end of the day, I think that Senator Berger and also, one of my representatives, Pirtle, that they were looking at the revenue issue and stuff. So that's revenue, but I also see that as predatorial revenue. And so anyway, I looked at it, and I talked with some friends in Rockingham County, particularly in the affected area up in Madison area. I said, to see how they felt about it. And when you get a church with 500 people, and it's not on Sunday, and they come together to have a conversation about what's going on in their community and how they're going to be impacted, I said, you know what? I need to be there, because I work for everybody up there also. And so I went up there, I spoke a little bit, gave my perspective, and I said, I don't support gambling and gaming, any of that, but I also support how the people feel and what they want. It's called We the People. I believe it's in our Constitution. So I listened to the conversation, and it continued. And the biggest thing that was disappointing is that our commissioners seem to be all bought in on this conversation. And then, of course, we had a few weeks later, we had a big meeting at the county commissioners meeting room. We had 850 people show up. Now, we normally don't have but about 40 or 50 people show up, maybe. But we had about 850 people. We had to bring in highway patrol, signage.
Wow.
Every building around the governmental center had somebody in it with TVs, so everybody could see the broadcast. And I listened. I spoke. Mark Walker spoke. Some pastors spoke. Citizens spoke. Camp Carefree was going to be affected. They were going to be impacted right beside their program where they look after persons that have disability, young people. It's like a camp for people that have disabilities. And they've been running since the 80s. Well, anyway, we said what we had to say. Commissioners got up, said what they had to say, and they voted for the zoning to allow it. And so then they moved forward. It's a sad situation, but we continued on. And I think I made the comment that night at the county commission meeting when I was asked by one of the news guys, what's next? I said, well, it's not over. We continue on to Raleigh. And I had the opportunity to go down to Raleigh with several other people that I've been working with, and I went down there. Several families were affected. And basically told to the legislature of that location that, we don't want this. I mean, if you're not going to let the people in North Carolina, if you're not going to let the people in the affected areas have a referendum, a vote on this situation, then they don't want it. And it's not right. And I couldn't support it because you're not giving the people an opportunity to have a voice. And we're a government of, for, and by the people. I'm a constitutional sheriff, I'll tell you. And I didn't like the way it was going down. It was pushed on everybody. It continued. We heard as the legislation went through the budget conversation, what also came out of that situation was Senate leadership gave in the Medicaid expansion.
Yes.
Senate leadership also passed legislation where they could determine what is public record or not. Now, I'm down with Chapter 132, as other government officials are. But what makes the legislature so special? I'm sorry.
We're just talking about that, Sheriff. I'm going to tell you why. Because I broke the story about UNC, ECU, and Duke running transgender clinics for 2, 3, and 4-year-olds, trying to get them in. And I relied upon 27,000 documents that I was able to get, by the way, with former Representative George Cleveland helped me access those documents.
I remember Mr. Cleveland. Yes, sir.
Right. He was absolutely very, very helpful to me. And 27,000 documents proving and really putting egg on the face of a lot of Republicans, because what people don't understand is a lot of the things like casinos, you would think Bible believing conservative Christians are against that. And you'd be right. However, these things like transgender clinics sometimes and other things, you're going to have a politician do one thing and say the other. But the point is shortly after that, not only the public records of all elected officials were barred. And let me tell you what that means, audience. It means if I'm a state senator or a state rep, I can decide what is a public record out of my emails. I can decide what is a public record. But I'm a journalist. That's what I do by trade.
Right.
And so for me, access is everything. So we no longer have, and I want you to know this, Sheriff, access to any of our 17 university systems and hospitals. That means if Qatar is giving UNC Chapel Hill money, and they most certainly are, I can't access that information because they also put a moratorium on those documents. Things that are going on in the university, and we're going to talk about that are very radical and extreme, and they trickle down to K through 12. I'm flying blind. In what world do the people's documents become at the pleasure of some elected official?
I think you said it right there. I think they got it backwards. We as elected officials serve the people. The people don't serve the elected officials. And I was talking, if I may say this, I was talking to someone about my campaign, and I've talked to some other people and hearing the same thing. Persons are afraid to get engaged publicly in my campaign for Senate in the 26th district because they're concerned about repercussions from the leadership coming out of the legislature. And I said, well, you know what?
Mad at us.
And I was going to say is that's exact. And I said, if that's the situation that you have, and that's the question, it's pretty simple. Then you need to support me because that's not the government that I signed on to years ago, and that's not the government I support. I support the government of, for, and by the people. And we've got to be transparent. We've got to be accountable.
Transparency is for the government. Privacy is for the citizen.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So that's some of the things that I saw. But, I know what I've been able to accomplish as sheriff. I know what the good things we've been able to do for the past 27 years. And I'll stand on my record. I think I can bring that to the Senate. And I think I can make a difference. I'm not being one to sit around and just let things happen. I like to make things happen, but I like to make things good happen for the people. And you've got to get input from the people. Now, if you don't ever show up in your district and you only see people during election time, how can you be an effective leader? How can you be an effective leader if you're not listening to the voice of the people? Instead, you seem to be listening to the voice of special interests and gaming and gambling institute and all those different special interests. But if you're not listening to the people, that's where your problem lies.
So, Sheriff, let's talk about who to listen to. I heard that you have been working with President Trump. Have you? What are you doing with President Trump and the sheriffs?
Well, I will tell you this. I have to kind of give you a little start on it. May I talk about the border issue and how that ties back to North Carolina?
Yes, that's what we want.
Okay.
We're hoping that all ties together.
I want to bring
Well,
up.
it really does. In 2010, I was elected president of the North Carolina Sheriff's Association. Mm-hmm. And, I said, you know what? I want to pick something that is very important and find out as much as I can about it and bring that back to the association and work with the sheriffs to educate them about how it can impact their communities. So I paid my own way. One of my lieutenants went with me. We paid our own way, and we flew out to Arizona to a place called Pinell County. Met a guy named Paul Babu, sheriff out there. And I told him, I want to embed with your guys in the field and see what they're dealing with so I understand the human trafficking issues and the drug trafficking routes and issues that they deal with. Just kind of take notes and listen, do some video documentation. And I did that. And when we were in the field, we spent a week out there, and it was just amazing. The open spaces, but also I went through the areas of the desert. We saw clothes and water bottles and all kinds of stuff thrown all around right before we get to the highway. And that's the loading points where people jump into the vehicles, stack up in the vehicles, and then and head into the interior United States. And I did that in 2010. But I told people I did something President Obama wouldn't do. I went to the border, and I paid my own way because I wanted to educate myself. Well, moving forward, I continue working with groups like Federation for American Immigration Reform, Center for Immigration Studies.
I love them.
And I had more opportunities to visit down in Texas, McAllen, Texas, down at the border issue where they've had a lot of problem with people coming in. I think in, I don't want to say the wrong county, but near Furious, Texas, Brooks County, Texas, I think last year they had about 100 bodies found out in these ranches when people try to go around the border patrol, and they end up dying, getting snake bit or exposure, and die due to exposure. And then they don't even know who they are. And the sheriff only has like 12 deputies for that whole county. And it's a big county. And I just want to know, how do they make it? So we know we got human trafficking coming in by the cartel. We know we got drug smuggling coming in by the cartel. And so we move forward. When President Trump was getting ready to run, I listened to him in 2016 during a convention. I said, this guy is the guy I want as my next president, because he said he supports law enforcement. He supports his military. He supports the American people. He puts America first. I said, that's my guy. So I organized a bunch of sheriffs all over the state called Sheriffs for Trump, kind of loose organization. I got a hat made up for the president, and I went all over for about 6 months trying to catch up and give him his hat. So anyway, didn't give it to him right then. But after the president was elected, after President Trump was elected in 2016, after he went in, I was at the Sheriff's Association meeting up in Washington, and the members of the executive committee got invited to come over to the sheriff to the White House, and I also got an invitation with him. But I did know some of my contacts that I met that were on the Trump team that the president was going to be over here with about 400 sheriffs. It'd be a good time to address sheriffs across America. And then the next day we got invited over to the White House, and that relationship continued. I had the opportunity to work with President Trump and roundtable with him and listen to him. I got to also work with his staff for many years, and still communicate with his former staff and some of the staff now. I talked with Tom Homan today, and he told me he said he's very busy, and I'll leave it at that. He's very busy, and I let him know that we are behind him in his efforts to protect America, starting in our borders, and we support our president and the America First agenda. And so, anyway, we continue working with the president, and 2020, I had the opportunity to be asked to be the campaign chair for President Trump in 2020 for North Carolina. That was great, a great opportunity. Continue working with sheriffs, supporting Trump. And then as we went into this last election season, we had Trump supporting sheriffs, and we followed the president as much as we could to show our support. And I think he's always knew that sheriffs are very close to the people they serve, right, and they listen and they get it, and they understand what's happening at the local level. And so what we were trying to do is convey to the president what we need to help us get our job done to protect our citizens. And the big picture is going back to the border. Whatever comes through the border doesn't stay there. It comes through the border and comes to North Carolina and across the country. And so what we realized is, if we didn't secure our borders, I'll say this in 2010, if we fail to secure our borders, every sheriff in America will become a border sheriff. And we were there. Under President Biden, 12 million people have gotten through our border, 2 million persons gotaways. We don't know who they are. Y'all talked about this. All these gotaways, 350,000 criminal offender illegal aliens that were released back out into the communities by some sheriffs.
Even know
So we have a couple things. First of all, I just wanted to show you this right quick. So your opponent, actually, his right-hand man at the time, was not a fan of Trump and was tweeting this out in some cases during the workday. During the workday, Berger's right-hand man would not only lob attacks at the base, yours truly included, but would put stuff like this out, which is highly political, right? Here he is saying that he's guilty of all the things he did with all these felonies, these BS felonies he was indicted for. But, your opponent would allow his lead employees to put that out all the time. So not only does he not appear to be a fan of Trump himself, he also doesn't seem to have his staff under control. But let me ask you this. Now, we know that federal agencies are not allowed to commandeer local and state LEOs for their own purposes, right? So we know that if a governor, for instance, and we've had leftist governors now, a streak of them for the last 16 years, we know that our governor is left wing, and we know that the feds won't be able to, force us to do things. Here's what I'm getting at: the state law that Berger's trying to pass and others are trying to pass that would close loopholes, that would force ICE or to force sheriffs to cooperate with ICE. That's just now coming out. So your opponent is just now bringing that forward.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. Wouldn't it have made more sense to do that when Biden opened the floodgates? Wouldn't it have been more sensible to do that in 2021, right after, Biden got into office? Why is he waiting now?
Well, I think it'd been made more sense to go back to about 2011. We had the majorities, we had the leadership in the House and Senate in North Carolina. We could have veto override on these issues. But why? That's the question: is why is it coming about now? But I want to tell you something. Since you brought it up, I'm going to tell you something. I saw an article that I was reading where in 2023, Senator Berger said he would not endorse former president or any other person running the presidential primary. That was in 2023.
Damn.
And then in 2023, also, Phil Berger Jr. endorsed Ron DeSantis for president. So that's in a public record. That's an article I read.
Yeah, and he's a person. I mean, look, a father. His son is not his father. So just because my mother loves Biden. So, and believe me, I ain't my mother, right? So they're allowed to disagree. But what I'm saying is, number one, and you brought up a good point. We had the supermajority. Okay, so we had the supermajority. He could pass these bills with forced cooperation. How many lives would have been saved? How many crimes would have been reduced? I mean, leadership comes from the top. And I'm not saying Tim. It's Tim.
Since you brought this up, Margaret. Yeah. Since you brought this up, let me go ahead and tell you this: is part of my work for about 5 years was pushing to get in the legislature through the Sheriff's Association work, which we finally. I polled about 94. I got around to about 94 sheriffs personally on the phone.
Out of 100.
Out of 100. Now, I'm not saying I just didn't get around to all of them, but I was pushing. I got about 94 sheriffs. But also in our association, we backed a bill that would require sheriffs. At that time, that bill was for all sheriffs in North Carolina to honor federal detainers. And we worked with the legislature on the bill. But it took what, 5 years to pass that bill? And it would just pass what, year before last? And here's another bill. I saw recently where they talk of constitutional carry. I have no problem with constitutional carry, but let me throw this at you. And last year, just passed last year, was the bill that would remove. I think I'm flipped around. I think I'm backwards here. But there was a bill passed. It took about 4 years, which was to remove permitting off of persons that want to purchase a handgun from a federal licensed dealer. And it took me 4 years working with my former Jerry Carter, who was our representative who passed away.
Yes, yeah.
Keith Kidwell and some other representatives. But it took us about 4 years to get that passed. And what I can't understand, Second Amendment issues, public safety, national security issues, protecting our citizens, those should be at the top of the priority list.
Well, we have a bunch of Looney Tunes.
That's some public safety. But look, they thought that cultural issues was the third rail when I came along, when I started doing this in 2020. And now it's bread and butter, everything's rolling. But I would think, Margot, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that criminal, crime bills are probably easier to pass, or would be easier to pass than some.
You would think, yeah. Well, let me tell you something. As a member of the Sheriff's Association, I think we do a great job. The legislature does give us opportunity to weigh in on some of the bills and work through them. So and I appreciate that, and I think the Chiefs of Police Association also.
Correct.
But the thing is,
better. I like you better. Yeah.
But why does it take when you had the majority? Why did it take 4 to 5 years to pass these bills?
Leadership comes from the top. We know.
It does.
We know if someone's name is on that bill, it's a fait accompli. It's going to pass. These crime bills are very important, not just now. They've been important. Now we're at a fever pitch. Now we've got Wake County, and we've got that idiot in Mecklenburg County. I've got to show you this. Hang on.
Sheriff McFadden.
Yeah, Sheriff McFadden. He's out there. He's a good-looking man. I mean, he's got some glamour shots out there, and he's saying, "Look."
No, he's not.
I mean, he's cute.
But go ahead.
He's cute. He's coming out there and he's saying, I'm going to cooperate. I'll put it. I mean, I think he's cute in this picture, guys. He looks very stately.
He looks stately.
He looks stately, but he's full of it because he says,
that's exactly right.
That's right, Margot. It says on one side of his mouth, he's like, well, I'm not going to cooperate with the bill. Then on the other side, but of course I'm going to follow the law. Well, what the heck does that mean?
I hear what you're saying.
What would you do about sheriffs like this? If you,
Margaret, the original bill, I was going to just tell you guys, and Sloan, the original bill was to require sheriffs to follow the law and honor the detainers. And the whole purpose of the detainer was to hold that person until
48 hours.
And do the transition. But some sheriffs in the larger jurisdictions, and the way that because of the appeals court, you didn't have to do it, but you could do it. And I always weigh on the side of protecting the public. And so the thing is, and that's where I was coming from, but some sheriffs didn't honor these detainers, and subsequently those persons were released back out in the community. Now, my comment on that was based on what I know is when people that are criminal offenders, that are illegal in the country, that get released back out into the community, they either go somewhere else or they take it, or they victimize either people, citizens, or people in the immigrant population.
They're
very vulnerable. People in the immigrant population are very vulnerable to these persons. So the thing is,
they can't come forward, right? Because they're illegal. So they feel
a lot of times they use persons try to use that to keep it. But now there's a thing called U visa. If you're a victim, well, first off, I'll tell you this. I'll speak for my county. If you're a victim of crime, I don't care who you are. You call, we're going to come and we're going to give you service. Okay, we're going to look after you. But if you're illegal and you're worried about that, I mean, first of all, a lot of times they're worried about that. But if you're illegal and you cooperate with law enforcement, this came out under George W. Bush. That it's called U visa. So if you are a victim of crime and you cooperate with law enforcement, it's like 30 different type category crimes. But if you cooperate with law enforcement, and we verified it, then we send it to HSI, Homeland Security. Homeland Security makes a decision based on their information and what they know, and plus what we tell them, if there was cooperation, together to make a decision to give that person a temporary status for them and their family, their children, and stuff like this. So a lot of times the women get, they're in a situation where the person's going to tell on them and say, hey, they're illegal, and they're being victimized and stuff. So this is a way to protect that victim, but also a way to basically prosecute that other person. But again, if you didn't honor detainers and hold that person for ICE, then those persons get released back out in the community and they can reoffend. And that was a concern. And that's why I pushed hard for this. But it all started about that trip to the border in 2010. Well, but from 2010 to 2025, we've come a long ways, but we still got a ways to go. And President Trump, you brought it up. President Trump, America First agenda. I told you the reason why I support him in the beginning was because he puts America and Americans first. We know who's going to endorse you, but we've got to run. Our next guest is going to kind of talk about a little bit more of the impacts of immigration, particularly with radical terrorism, which you and I have talked about a lot. Yes, ma'am.
Love you because you always wear your Israel lapel pin, your U.S. and Israel. But we'll talk about that on your next visit. So thank you very much. We're going to
come back, Sheriff Page.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hanford. Okay.
Y'all be safe.
Very good. All right. We will. Bye-bye. Okay.
I feel like I need to give him a tea.
There's just so much to unpack. But we've got Dan Burmawi coming up, and he's going to tell us about we've done this story. Dan, actually, you've read this story.
I'm going to change my last name, because Burmawi, it's like Americans cannot really pronounce it.
I'm doing a terrible job.
Burmawi.
Burmawi. Okay, but give me and I mean, I butcher even Hebrew sometimes.
No, it's all right. I don't mind at all, but I mean, I want to make it easy.
Burmawi.
Yeah.
Better? Okay, I got it. All right.
I'm not going to be able to roll my R like that, Dan. I'm just going to tell you. So I'm going with Burmawi.
Sure.
Listen, you got two Southern women here that, you know how we are. You already know how we are. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I'm glad that you're on.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to be here.
You caught the tail end of Sheriff Page's. I mean, he's with the National Sheriff Association. He's with the State Sheriff Association about the state of the borders. They've been open. We don't know who's here. You know, tell us about your organization briefly, and let's get right into what becomes of these unvetted and ungrateful immigrants who come in here and do bad things.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. So I started Project X, EX, because some people, when I say X, they think it's X, and they say that I'm copying.
Wife, and they want
I'm copying Elon Musk. I'm not. I started Project X before Elon Musk started X. Anyway, I started it after I moved to the United States, because when I was living in the Middle East, there was no freedom of speech. So I could not really voice my opinions. So Project X mainly dismantled the Islamic narrative on politics, on faith, on traditions. So that's number one. That's when we are talking to the audience in the Islamic world. The other part is educating the West about the threat of Islam, because Islam is not only a religion, it is a political system. It has its own constitution, Sharia. It has its own military ideology, jihad. It has its own financial system. So Islam is recognized as a religion, but Islam is not only a religion. So we have seen what Islam has done to our region for the past 14th century. And the threat is real. If you look at what's happening in Europe today, you better start thinking like, I'm next. So yeah, that's Project X.
Okay, and so tell us, you're Christian. And were you always Christian? What happened?
And where are you from?
I mean, So is for.
Yeah. So
tell us.
I'm from Jordan. I converted to Christianity in 2007 after the Danish cartoonist controversy. I don't know if you remember that, but it was similar to Charlie Hebdo kind of thing. Yeah. After the Danish cartoonist controversy, I became very devout. I committed my life to serve Islam. But after a year, I left Islam. It's a long story, but long story short, I left Jordan because I could not practice my faith in Jordan. Because Jordan is, even though Jordan is considered to be a tolerant country, but not when it comes to Islam. Christians can convert to Islam. That's welcomed. They can change their documents, their registration with the government. They can convert from Islam to Christianity. From Christianity to Islam, but Muslims cannot. And beside that, it is considered to be a destabilizing factor because the government doesn't want anyone converting to Christianity, because that would attract jihadists and the radicals to make some harm. Probably they're going to harm me or harm the church where I go. So it's better for everyone. I just leave. So I left to Lebanon. Lebanon is, it's like I always say, Lebanon is the only country where freedom speaks Arabic, or at least it used to. But I lived there for 14 years. I worked in the Christian nonprofit sector. And when the influence of Hezbollah grew exponentially in the country, it was not safe. So I decided to migrate to the U.S. especially when that time we just had a son, me and my wife. So we didn't want him to grow in that environment. Now, it's not only about economy. Radicalism is not the fruit of poverty or what they teach in the academia. It's
We know
about,
that because we're going to show you a doctor. We're going to show you where it's happening with doctors. So
yeah,
you're right.
yeah. It's not what they teach in the post-colonialism era studies, the manufactured Islam. That's not true. What's happening in our region is the direct result of Islam as an ideology, and it affects everything in your life, every single thing. It touches on things that you cannot even imagine. So yeah, we moved to the U.S. and October 7 happened, and after October 7, I was shocked by the footage that Hamas shared. It was so painful to watch, and I just recorded a video, and it went viral on TikTok, almost 7 million views in
Wow.
3 days. And I basically, what I said in that video is 1 week before October 7, MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, he was on Fox News. And he said that negotiation with Israel is going, and it's positive. We are getting somewhere. And suddenly, October 7th. So it was orchestrated. It was intentional by Iran through their proxy Hamas to destroy any peace process that was taking shape in the Middle East. Because they don't want to lose their cover for jihad. I will talk about this in a few minutes.
So we're really wanting to get your take on this particular instance, but it's by no means just localized here in North Carolina. We've got doctors all over the country. This is a rural doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. Rural North Carolina. And he is a cardiologist. And I'm telling you, he describes himself on his social media as an influencer. And he will literally go, I believe, between patients. This guy is so hot. He's like we are on Twitter, except for he's a doctor. But the kind
Listen,
of stuff.
Sloan, what you're seeing here is not just professional misconduct. It is ideological loyalty to a religious political system that glorifies jihad. This system hates the West and view Jews and Christians as enemies. So these individuals openly sympathize with terrorists, and they face zero consequences because the fear of being labeled Islamophobic has paralyzed your institutions.
Absolutely.
So,
since 9/11.
Yeah.
I mean,
actually, let me just talk for a minute about 9/11. I'm sorry. What happened on 9/11 is that Islam was exposed because Osama bin Laden, he was quoting the Quran all the time, right? And they were saying, this is Islam. We want to occupy, want to conquer the West. So everybody thought this is Islam. And there was a reaction. However, George W. Bush went on national TV and he said, Islam is the religion of peace, right? So here's what happened. When you accuse someone of something and they've done it, and you accuse them, you expose them, then you take that back. You say, no, I'm sorry, I apologize. What happens? You empower them. They become 10 times more, right? So that's exactly what happened. 9/11 exposed that Islam is not only a religion, it actually encourages and commands violence. And it's not misinterpretation. It's not that a group of jihadists hijacked Islam. That is a lie. It is Islam in its sacred text. So what happened when the West said, no, we're sorry, we apologize, because they didn't want any clash between,
well, we're not talking about Muslims. Dan, we did a terrible job of communication. Muslims aren't the problem. It's Islam is a problem, and it's a political
absolutely,
doctrine.
absolutely.
And you've got radical imams here. So if you look at radical imams as the driver, right, and the actual fuel, right, happens to be the text. If some impressionable people get in the wrong hands, right, of these imams and are driven to the text, this is the outcome. And the interesting juxtaposition here is, as Jews and Christians, if we're becoming more devout, we're not going to be, we're going to be doing less bad stuff, or there are things that to hurt other people, right? And it seems like it's the opposite sometimes, as evidenced by here. I mean, can this guy do work? I mean, this guy is tweeting multiple times a day, this kind of stuff. So it's not like political or anything. We're talking about accusing Christian Zionists of Jesus is fake, they're criminals, they're bloodthirsty, he's justifying terrorism. I mean, is this someone driven by this ideology, or is he just nuts?
They have tried everything. They even started this trend, Christ is King, to take a jab at the Jews. It's ridiculous. It's actually, I wrote about this. I said, when Jesus, when they wanted to take Jesus and make him king, he actually ran away from them because they wanted to make him king for political reasons. No. They wanted to make him a king for political reasons, and that's why Jesus refused. What those people who started the Christ is King thing, actually they are saying Christ is King because of political reasons. They have political agendas, so they are repeating the same thing that Jesus ran away from. So actually, Jesus runs away from this group of people who are using the name of Jesus to take a jab at the Jews.
It's the other side of the coin. So these are right-wing influencers, far right. It's the other side of the coin from this doctor, and it's a perversion of, I mean, in this case, the Christian side of it's a perversion of Christianity. But this guy, what I hear you saying is that it's actually is the text. And I'll tell you, because we don't have a lot of time here, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
we want to have you back.
Sure.
Oh gosh, we could talk forever.
My pleasure. Yeah.
So yeah, because we need an understanding.
Let me just make it easy for you, okay? So when you look back at history, Christianity has done a lot of crazy things, horrible things, right? But nothing was based or rooted in the text. That is a fact. You go to the New Testament and you read, there's nothing sacred was behind any of the actions of the church. Nothing. So when the Reformation happened, they said, okay, let's go back to the text. And when you go back to the text, what are you gonna find there? It's like, love your enemy, give what for Caesar to Caesar. So there's separation between church and state. There's no politics in there. Judaism, if you go to the Old Testament, there is only descriptive stories. It is a story, okay? This happened with Samuel. This happened with Joshua. The difference with Islam, because this is a very important point and people need to understand it. Yes, there is violence in the Old Testament, but the stark difference is this. In Islam, it's not descriptive. It's not a story. It is a command. Kill those who don't believe in Allah and His Prophet. Behead them. Don't follow them. Find them. Wherever you find them, kill them. And the problem is, some verses in the Quran are peaceful, but people don't understand that in Islam, there's this concept. In the Quran, it's called abrogation. So the later verses abrogated the early verses, and those beautiful, not too many, but beautiful verses, they have been abrogated by actually, one verse in the Quran, Surah 9 and verse 5, abrogated 148 verse in the Quran. So this is not interpretation. Islam is not flexible. There is no room for growth or evolvement,
You can't interpret.
evolution.
In other words, you can't live your own. Like I can live my own Torah,
Sure.
right? And it may not be accurate or whatever. You can live your own Bible, whatever. What I hear you saying, try living your own Quran and see if you don't face repercussions, right?
Absolutely. You can, it's like, look at the Protestant church after the Reformation. There is like 100,000 different church, different belief system.
Okay.
Even some people believe that God is a female. Who cares? Nobody is going after these people, attacking them or threatening to kill them, right? Because they believe differently. Okay. Yeah, in Islam, that is the biggest problem, in my opinion. It is. It's like everybody has to be similar to everybody else. If you're different, that is scandalous. That must be punished. So I know that you don't have a lot of time, but because you're talking about illegal immigration, the illegal immigration problem in America is not only connected to Islamic Jihad, it is a bigger problem. But whether it is illegal immigration or legal immigration, my message to the lawmaker in America is this: Islam must never be given the power to have legislative power. Never. Because that is the one thing that will be used to replace the system. And it's like, don't believe me. Believe all of these imams, their videos everywhere saying, yes, we want to spread Islam in America and we want to change the system. We want to replace it.
Look at Texas. What's going on there?
So what does that mean? What does
look at Minnesota
means? It means that Western values to be changed, to be replaced. What are the Western values? It's individual liberty. There is no individual liberty in Islam. There is no universal value for human beings.
Respect for women.
Respect for women, but it's contradictory in its nature to that Western values. So anyway, the lawmaker needs to realize that without ideological assessment, more and more people who have this framework as their ethical system will keep pouring into the country. And what is happening in Europe is going to happen again in America. You need ideological assessment by experts. You cannot find the thing that you don't know how to look for. It's like you cannot even know what to look for when you are doing the ideological assessment. So it has to be people who understand what is that ideology, what its nature, how does it look like.
We're doing that next week here. We're doing that next week here in North Carolina with lawmakers. We'll be doing that here, and we'll be doing that ongoing. I mean, we're making North Carolina ground zero for doing this. And a quick update on this medical issue. I think, Dan, there's about to be language put into the medical board policy. Now, wait for it, because it's really radical, that the medical board cannot allow doctors to practice medicine while supporting terrorism. I know it's radical, but I think the language is going to be added in. I can't believe we're here in this moment.
Yeah, that's insane. We have to do that.
But what you said is true. You have to legislate either for or against this stuff happening, or it will happen. So thank you very much for coming on. We're definitely going to have you on again, because it's
thank you, Tom. Thank you, Margot. Nice meeting you.
And, Dan, I hope you come back for an hour. I think this is an in-depth conversation that I don't think a lot. Listen, I'm from Western North Carolina, and while I've been world traveled in my life, I haven't spent a lot of time learning about Islam and Muslims. And I think it's an important topic in this time, in our state, in our country. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me. And we'll be looking forward to be on again. Thank you. Absolutely.
Bye, Dan. Bye.
Bye, Dan. Wow.
I mean, it's, everyone knows that I was arrested for posting, well, this is how it works. They train the police
They
department.
make themselves the victim.
That's 100%. So it is already here, and we cannot allow it to metastasize.
That is crazy, though, Sloan. Now that you look at it from the perspective he just gave us, it's their intention to make themselves the victim and to win the battle no matter what.
To use your American legal system against you and the legal citizen, and eventually replace it. And they can do it against Jews like me, but that's a double bonus now, isn't it?
Well, and if you put them in the power in a medical situation, not only can they, and what we've seen with these children's rights bills, it's really scary.
Yeah. So, guys, I have to tell you that we were laughing and joking earlier about the frivolity, if you will, of the Democrats. This isn't a joke.
This is not funny.
It is here. We have to pull our heads out of our bottoms and actually face it. And so we're making that a priority here, because, yeah, you can see the confluence of what's happening already. The open borders. This doctor, he's not by no means an N of one. We have many other ones. Just free and clear, he's going to express himself. But the funny thing is, it's not funny, it's pathetic. The second I express my free speech, he actually threatened to call the police on me. That's how these people work. So
wow, they use the law against you. Wow, that's amazing. Hey, Sloan, we don't have a lot of time, but we got a show on Thursday. So we'll just catch up on everything on Thursday. Okay. And I think we got a bathroom bill to talk about on Thursday.
Another one. Again, how many years have we been going on about this? By the way, if you're a guy and you come into my bathroom, a public bathroom, I think you deserve what you get.
You may not like it.
And I carry. So I'm just saying, what kind of man puts himself in a women's bathroom? I'm so sick of this ridiculous shit.
Well, one that loses a Title IX case at Western Carolina to Peyton McNabb. Her birthday, and we want to wish her a happy birthday.
That's true. Happy birthday, Peyton. Happy birthday,
Peyton.
That's
very good to end on.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And we will see you on Thursday. Thursday at 8.
Thursday's my birthday.
Wait, Thursday's your birthday?
Yep.
Tell me more about that. 20.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just trying to pull down the video. Okay. Well, happy birthday, 22-year-old. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye. Guys.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.